The Virtual Case File project was part of a larger initiative called Trilogy. Trilogy was launched in early 2000 in response to a congressional investigative that found the FBI's information technology in a state of total disrepair. The Trilogy project is the FBI's third major attempt since 1993 at upgrading its information technology resources. Almost 13,000 of the agency's desktop computers were 4 to 8 years old and couldn't run basic software. The local networks in many field offices ran at a speed equivalent to 56K modems, and investigative information could not be logged into the agency's central database for access by others. A project that should have taken 3 years failed after 4 years with requirements still not met. The goal of the Trilogy project was to upgrade the infrastructure of the FBI and to provide a system which allowed the entire FBI employees to access the data from any office in its organization. This case analyzes the FBI's failed attempt to introduce a criminal case management system called the Virtual Case File. The Virtual Case File was part of a larger project called Trilogy, which aimed at modernizing all the organization's IT system infrastructure and application to facilitate more efficient and effective processes. This should be done in 3 main steps. First, upgrading the FBI's hardware and software. Next, upgrading the FBI's communication network. And finally, upgrading the FBI's 5 most important investigative applications. Officially, the project began in 2000. Even though the need for an IT system upgrade and more efficient user application for investigation were evident, the implementation of the system failed after 5 years of development and $170 million spent. The reason can be summarized into 4 categories. The first is a lack of appropriate enterprise architecture. Next, there was a poor system design. Third, poor program and contract management. And finally, there was a lack of IT knowledge and human resources.
In September of 2002 and July of 2003, the FBI reached out to the National Research Council for assistance with bettering its virtual case file system, Trilogy. The NRC is renowned for its expertise in reviewing issues and providing solutions and suggestions. Per the National Research Council report, the committee provided several key changes that needed to be made to ensure the success of Trilogy. The suggestions that were given to the FBI in 2004 included: 1. The FBI was not to roll out its virtual case file until it had a validated contingency plan for reverting completely or partially the automated case support, the ACS. The second was development of the case linkage between IT and a coherent view of the Bureau's mission and operational needs. 3. Must allow adequate time for testing before any IT application is deployed, even if the dates of initial operation capability are delayed. Overall, human resources base for IT was not nearly adequate to have met the challenges and the needs of Trilogy. Lastly, and most importantly, the contract management process was inadequate, and contract schedules lacked specific timelines necessary to determine whether or not the project is making adequate progress within the schedule and budget constraints. As with any entity, private or government sector, its IT department and resources will be only as good as the funds and efforts put into it. The review of the system done by the NRC found that, quote, the FBI's efforts and results in the area of enterprise architecture are late and limited and fall far short of what is required. The leader of the National Research Council, McGrody said this when he went to visit the project in person in 2004. Without a strong structure to build on, any project's doomed to fail. In addition to its deficiency issues in the area of IT, in 2006, the Government Accountability Office performed a study of the project as a result of the escalating costs that totaled nearly $537 million. As a result of 9/11, the project initiative to virtualize the case files of the FBI began. In September 2000, Congress approved $379.8 million for a 3-year upgrade for the FBI. By 2006, the Government Accountability Office was asked to research the project due to the cost escalating to nearly $537 million. That's $157 million above approved budget amount. The GAO provided more suggestions to the FBI on how to correct errors that were surfacing. This was as a result of the FBI's pending litigation case. The first suggestion given by the GAO echoed strongly the suggestion given by the NRC back in 2004, back when the NRC did point out that the management system was inadequate. The first suggestion is facilitate the effective management of interagency contracting. The second, mitigate the risk of paying potentially unallowable or questionable cost in connection to cost reimbursement type contracts. And lastly, improve FBI's accountability for and safeguarding of its computer equipment. Congress did follow up with this review by the GAO. In response to the study, the lead of the team, Linda Calhoun, was asked a question: has the FBI implemented your recommendations? Linda responded, at the request of this committee, we will evaluate FBI's internal controls over contractor invoices and asset accountability for the Sentinel project. The FBI's new Electronic Information Management System initiative to help ensure the internal control failures we identified with Trilogy are not repeated. This would suggest that the FBI did take Linda's advice and the Accountability Office.
Stakeholders are defined as an individual, group, or organization who may affect or be affected by a decision or outcome of a project. These include all members of the project team, as well as any interested entities that are internal or external to the organization. Key stakeholders associated with the FBI Trilogy project included FBI agency and agency officers, as well as the Department of Justice, which the FBI is a part of. It also included the United States Congress, which has oversight responsibilities of this agency. Stakeholders further included the Government Accountability Office and the General Services Administration of the federal government, along with the SAIC, which is the Science Applications International Corporation contractors, and last but not least, the taxpayers of the United States who ultimately footed the bill. According to the InfoWorld article, How the FBI Blew It, during the Trilogy project's tenure, the FBI went through 5 different CIOs, 10 project managers, and 36 contract changes that could be accounted for. The result, said Senator Patrick Leahy at February 2005 Senate Appropriations Committee hearings, was that it has been a kind of train wreck in slow motion. Stakeholders on the lowest level included FBI agents who continued to struggle with the preparation, coordination, and management of paper records, even passing them around the office instead of being able to send them electronically for reviews or approvals. Then they had to enter them into an antiquated system which did not allow tracking of case correlations or statistics and did not even include a graphical interface or the ability to make updates or changes. Project issues identified by the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General were poorly defined and slowly evolving design requirements, contract weaknesses, unrealistic task scheduling, lack of management continuity and tracking of costs and deficient management of property items by the FBI project team. Second-level stakeholders of the Trilogy project involve the Government Accountability Office and the General Services Administration. The Government Accountability Office is responsible for auditing and evaluating the use of public funds and the federal programs using those funds. As such, they're an oversight committee of the General Services Administration, who was responsible for overseeing the contracts, the invoices, the payments, the costs, and the asset controls involved in the Trilogy project. In a report by the GAO, it stated the General Services Administration did not provide an adequate basis to verify that goods and services billed were actually received and that the amounts billed were appropriate. $10.1 million was assigned to questionable contract costs. Missing assets of 1,200 pieces of equipment were identified at a cost of $7.6 million, and 37 lost or stolen pieces of Trilogy equipment were questioned at a value of about $167,000. The third-level stakeholders in the Trilogy project involved the contractors. An InfoWorld article called How the FBI Blew It details some of the confusion and controversy that evolved with this project. It talks about how Trilogy started out as a goal to webify 5 of 42 mainframe applications that were being used by the FBI at the time. FBI IT managers did not evaluate or research how to proceed with this project. They kind of went by the seat of their pants. So they just selected 5 of the most used applications for upgrading. When they realized that they didn't have the expertise to deal with this appropriately, it contracted with DynCorp, who was later purchased in 2003 by a consulting firm of CSC. It was for the desktop and infrastructure components, and then with the SAIC for the software portion. The SAIC group president, Mark Hughes, is quoted as saying that about 6 months into the contract, SAIC was essentially told by the FBI that they wanted to change everything they were doing on the contract, to set aside anything that had been done, and actually to work with identifying what requirements they needed. According to Hughes, those requirements became more and more impossible to identify and formalize because they kept changing due to the FBI's, and I quote, rolling transformation of internal processes. One of these requirements was a flash cutover, which essentially translates to building a large new system, shutting down the old system, and then just turning on the new one. SAC claims that it pushed back on this, but that they were overruled by the FBI. However, the SAC just kept moving along because they had a cost-plus award annual contract bringing in good money for them. Hughes says that all of this snowballed in 2002 with the mother of all misunderstanding, in which the SAC offered a proposal identifying December 2003 as the deployment date, but as changes continued to be brought in by the FBI project team, the cost and delivery date shifted, and then when they did deliver a product in December 2003, it was incomplete and highly flawed. The fourth and final level of stakeholders in the Trilogy project is the American taxpayers. This project cost the public upward of $170 million with no final deliverable. It also cost in public, judicial, and governmental security matters, with issues such as the Robert Philip Hansen espionage problem, where an insider used the old FBI system to steal high-security information and sell it on the international market. It also was involved in the trial of Timothy McVeigh, where over 3,000 pages of evidence was not disclosed to McVeigh's attorneys due to the massive disorganization of FBI documents. McVeigh had already been sentenced to death for blowing up the federal building in Oklahoma City when federal agents were tasked with finding these documents, looking through car trunks and behind desks and drawers to finally locate them. As a result, McVeigh's execution was delayed by a month as the judicial process was extended for review of these documents and for the FBI processes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamal Howard, and I will be doing the conclusion portion of the project. During the conclusion, we will be looking at three things. We'll be looking at the reasons for which the VCF failed. We will also look at things they could have done to prevent this epic failure. And last but not least, we'll look at where the FBI stands today with their system. First and foremost, this project was filled with overly ambitious goals. Initially, SIAC was only tasked with creating a web-based interface for the automated case support system that the FBI was currently using. But as we all know, after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the FBI's mission would be altered drastically. This caused the FBI to request new requirements to the software in the middle of the project. This is never a good thing to do. Upon completion of the VCF, they also opted for a flash cutover instead of implementing the new software in phases. And thirdly, the VCF was being created from scratch, not utilizing any existing software. A good approach to IT project management projects is to set realistic goals from the beginning and don't change them. This project had a lot of unclear requirements. To begin with, there was no clear picture of what the VCF should do upon completion. As a result of that, they spent the entire first year gathering functionality requirements for the project, which resulted in an 800-page document for functionality. This was way too in-depth. They had simple functions in the document, such as the button placement on the pages. A good rule of thumb would be to define the requirements at the beginning and set firm deadlines. Also, during this project, there were problems that arose that were simply ignored. For instance, Matthew Patton, who was a security engineer for the VCF project, proposed integrating existing FBI security measures into the software. He was simply ignored, which caused him to go out on a blog site and rant about the situation, which violated his security clearance and ultimately got Patton fired. Another case was when Sherry Higgins, the newly appointed project manager, took over. She went on the record to say that the FBI was dictating how he wanted things done, and this took away her team's ability to do their job. So I would say when working in a team, it's a good idea to listen to all team members. Everyone brings something useful to the table. There was a lack of communication also during this project. For instance, the SIAC knew from the beginning that they would not make the December 2003 deadline, and that was because of multiple scope changes within the project, and also from the onstart that it lacked clear requirements, but they never communicated this with the FBI. So I have to say, when working on a project with a team, you need to communicate the problems with each other. In this case, the FBI could have changed the deadline if they knew in advance that the SAIC couldn't complete it for the specific reasons. This project also lacked true leadership. For instance, there were too many changes in top-level leadership. 5 CIO changes and 10 project manager changes within a project, that's entirely too many. Also, no one was willing to take a stand. They had individual agents requesting functionality changes to the project. To avoid this, it's a good rule of thumb to appoint a competent project manager, someone who is not scared to take a stand and take control of the project. So where does the FBI stand today with their virtual case filing system? Well, as of May 2014, they have a new program called Centennial that is currently being created, which is supposed to do the same things as the VCF, but add different functionalities in it to fight terrorism. But as of now, they're still using the paper filing system and electronically managing